Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and welcome. Thank you very much, Lisa. Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and welcome to Congregation Kol Ami here in sunny, still kind of sunny, West Hollywood, California. We have a little bit of sunlight left. My name is Rabbi Ross Levy. I'm the assistant rabbi here, and I am honored and excited to be back on the Bima and to be joined by the folks here in our sanctuary, the many folks joining us online. Really excited to be able to bring in Shabbat together, to take a breath from the week. And so we'll begin on page 127. And for those joining along, you can take a look at a flipbook, an online ebook version of our prayer book, Mishkan Tefillah, by going to ccarnet.org, ccarnet.org, and you'll be able to find a virtual version of our flipbook and of our prayer book and be able to follow along with us. So we pray together at the top of the page. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. And we're taught that Shabbat is the love mate, the soul mate of the people of Israel. And we will continue by singing the love song of the Hebrew Bible, the Song of Songs, Shir HaShirim. And so we'll join together at the top of page 129 with Dodi Lee. We'll continue by formally welcoming in Shabbat with the lighting of the Shabbat candles. I'd like to invite up Shane Vicinelli, who will be lighting our Shabbat candles for us. We turn to page 121.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need and who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
You gotta use your thumb. There you go.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshenu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen.
English.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu le'adlik ner v'tzivanu le'adlik ner Shel Shabbat. Blessed are you who commands us to kindle the light of Shabbat. We continue welcoming in the presence of Shabbat with Kiddush, which can be found on page 123. Please join along. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, בשבת קודשך, באהבה וברצון, הנחלתנו. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat lechaim. Lechaim. I hope those of you joining us from home had some wine or some grape juice at the ready. Let me make my way back over to my other station here. And finally, we're going to culminate our welcoming in the presence of Shabbat, of beginning to take that deep breath that comes every 7 days to rest, to refuel, to be nourished. And we will continue welcoming with Lecha Dodi, which can be found on page 138. And we will tonight be doing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And on the 9th verse, as is our custom, we ask that you please rise and face the entrance as we welcome in the presence of Shabbat. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat mekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat mekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad hishmianu el ha'meyuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad L'shem tiferet v'litila לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי אם מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, אורי אורי שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Having welcomed in the sacred presence of Shabbat, I'd encourage you to turn to your neighbors and introduce yourselves if you haven't met. Wish each other a Shabbat Shalom. Encourage those joining us online to do the same. I'm sure folks are active in the comments section, but Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom, Mom and Dad, and Ronnie, if you're watching. We remain standing as we turn to our call to worship, the Baruch Hu, on page 146. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai, Amen. Please be seated. We'll continue with our blessing marking the transition from day into night as part of the tides and times and seasons that we get to experience as the earth rotates on its axis and we get to experience the difference, the change. We get the light that comes after darkness, and we get the darkness that covers out the light. We'll read together, pray together at the top of page 149. Please join me. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, God, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol, all these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and it gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael, praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people, Israel. Now invite everyone to please rise as we join together for our declaration of unity, the unity of all being, the unity of all existence, the Shema, page 152. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod, Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. You may be seated. Continue on page 154. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Continue praying. At the bottom of page 157, we'll pray this responsively. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. We now echo their song of liberation, of deliverance, Micha Mocha, on the top of page 158. Yai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai yai, yai yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. Mi chamocha, mi chamocha, ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha, netar b'kodesh, nora tehilo, osei velei, nora tehilot, osei velei, malchutecha ra'uvanecha, rokei ayam mifnei Moshe u'Miriam, zeli anu ve'amru, zeli anu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Yael alais, yai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. I think oftentimes it can be hard to rest. Sometimes, even though it's a paradox, it kind of takes a lot of effort to rest, to let our minds rest, to let our bodies rest, to put the phone down, lay our head on the pillow, and to be able to go to sleep. Especially in these days, sleep can be hard to find, at least for me. And that's why, that's part of what I think the power of the Hashkivenu prayer is asking for God to lay us down, asking for help to find rest, to give ourselves what we need, or to accept what we need from others. And it's not always easy, and so that's why we pray for it. So we'll continue with the Hashkivenu blessing on page 160. And you'll see in the inserts, if you picked up a Shabbat bulletin, there's an insert in there. We're going to be doing a version of Hashkivenu by Josh Nelson, a fantastic Jewish singer-songwriter. We've done it in our community before, but there's some English towards the end that's a little bit different, so you have it there in front of you. Just take a sip of water. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom ve'amidenu shomreinu lechayim lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom ve'amidenu shomreinu lechayim lechayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom ve'amidenu shomreinu lechayim lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom ve'amidenu shomreinu lechayim lechayim. May you shall us until the morning comes. May you lay us down in peace, and may you raise us up. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom ve'amidenu shomreinu l'chaim l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom ve'amidenu shomreinu l'chaim l'chaim. We are taught that we are supposed to pray as if everything depended on God, but we are to act as if everything depends on us. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. It may not bring water to parched fields or mend a broken bridge or even rebuild a ruined city, but prayer can water an arid soul. It can mend a broken heart. It can rebuild a weakened will. So as we enter into the tefillah, the central prayer text of our service, I'll invite everyone to please rise as you are able, as we turn to page 164. And as we move into the Amidah, our custom here is to begin singing Adonai Sifatai, literally praying to pray, and then we continue individually. And I invite you to take a seat once you've finished your prayer, but I want to encourage everyone to think about one thing that they might need. I know we're not really supposed to be asking for things on Shabbat, but what thing this week, what intention for this Shabbat do you have? What's that one piece of rest, that one piece of nourishment you're looking for? Adonai Sifatai, page 164. Adonai Sifatai Tivtach Ufi Agid Tehilatecha Adonai Sifatai Tivtach Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Feel free to continue on your own with the words passed down by generations before us, or those prayers that originate from within your own heart. continue with the words of you, Leratson, and Oseh Shalom at the bottom of page 180. Yehu Leratson Imrefi Beyon Libi Lefanecha Adonai Tzuri Begoali Ya-na-na-na-na 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 Oseh Shalom Oseh Shalom Bimroma Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al kol Yisrael Ve'al kol Yoshvei Teva. With our prayers still ringing within our hearts and our souls, we offer up prayers for healing for those who may be in need. We're thinking of those who are in need of healing of mind, healing of body, or healing of spirit. On this Shabbat, Congregation Kol Ami is praying for John Altshul, Gary Ashland, Vicky Beard, Richard Bernard, Lisa Bird, Debbie Blatt, Elaine Blatt, Ray Blankenship, Louise Cantrell, Wayne Cantrell, Arlene Drake, Gail Ehrlich, Tino Felipe, Richard Frank, Zeus Goldberg, Reba Goldman, Brad Greenberg, Dave Hall, Don Hollis, Yafa Hughes, Tim Jordan, Heidi Kebus, Alice Kessler, Vanessa Knight, Daryl Levine, Peter Mackler, Chuck Pace, Tammy Rabowski, Howard Romanoff, Ivan Rosenberg, Lowell Selvin, Judy Searle, Michael Simmental, Henry Sommerfeld, Barbara Thompson, David Suriel, Kathy Weiss, Phil Windsor, Eitan Wolf, Nancy Wortman, and David Ben Herschel Vibashan. To these names, we add those of your loved ones. If you'd like to share them with our community, whether out loud or in your hearts, I invite you to do so now. And those of you joining us online, feel free to write the names of those you're thinking of in the chat section. That way we can carry all of these names with our own and help use this spiritual energy that we've built up tonight to send healing energy over to them and pray that they have strength to continue to recover. We offer our prayer for healing Misha Berach on page 371. Misha Berach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha Le'imotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, We are, as I will be discussing here in a second, in the middle of the Omer. We're counting the days between Passover and Shavuot. And so I'll invite everyone to page all the way back to page 570 in your prayer books. Since evening has come, it is time for us to count the Omer, because in the Jewish calendar, the evening is what begins the day. All right. So we'll first read the blessing towards the bottom of the page together in Hebrew, if you'd like to join along, and in English, and then I will announce what day we're at. I know you're all dying to know. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Our praise to you, Adonai, sovereign of all, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to count the Omer. Hayom esrim ushmone yom shehem arba'a shavuot la'omer. Today is the 28th day, which is exactly 4 weeks to the Omer, or of the Omer. During my year of study in Israel at the beginning of rabbinical school at Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion, I had the opportunity to learn from a lot of amazing teachers. And one teacher in particular who had a significant impact on me was a rabbi named Rabbi Leon Morris, who's now the president of the Pardes Institute of Jewish Studies in Jerusalem. And I don't exactly remember when, but one class session, he was telling us about his connection with tefillin. For those who might not be familiar, tefillin are a set of 2 black boxes with leather straps, one for your head, one for your arm. And traditionally, they are worn during morning worship every day, except for Shabbats and holidays. And he explained that although he didn't grow up wrapping tefillin regularly, when he began to explore his connection to Jewish tradition as an adult, he took up this daily practice. And since then, he told us, every day since then, except for, of course, the Shabbats and holidays and all of that, he has wrapped tefillin every day. And I don't want to reveal anything too personal, and I hope he'll forgive me, but he mentioned that the day he began this practice was just around 2 decades ago. About 20 years. And I remember sitting in class in amazement at this feat. Having not grown up in a community where daily, let alone weekly prayer was part of our connection with Judaism, I marveled at this commitment to daily ritual. It was, on the one hand, encouraging, as I was beginning my own experimentation with certain Jewish customs and how I wanted to craft my personal Jewish life. But it was also daunting to commit to such a diligent practice for such a long period of time consistently felt almost unobtainable, too big, too intimidating to even know where to begin. As with developing any routine, it felt as if one slip up or one mistake would ruin any attempt to bring an intentional practice like this into my life. If I could not do it consistently, I told myself, then what's the point of even trying? When I did try certain things, and occasionally came upon lapses or bumps in the road, I would feel the frustration well up inside of me. I think a lot of us feel this. My anger at myself for failing to live up to my own stated goals. And I would venture to guess that I'm not alone in this experience. Those of us who seek to bring meaning to our daily lives, to live intentionally, to take care of our earth, and to make holiness out of the mundane, we might often feel intimidated by certain practices or customs or restrictions, just in general, and particularly when it comes to Jewish practice. Whether it's creating a sense of Shabbat after a long week, experimenting with traditional kashrut, or what many refer to as ethical kashrut of vegetarianism or veganism, fasting on Yom Kippur, finding ways of developing a personal practice of Judaism can feel hard and almost impossible if it was not ingrained within us from a young age. This Shabbat, as I was explaining just before, we find ourselves just over halfway through the counting of the Omer, the practice of counting each one of the 49 days, 7 weeks that pass between Passover and Shavuot. Making my way or completing the Omer has always been a challenge for me. Well, at least ever since I learned about it during my year in Israel. Like wrapping tefillin, it was not a part of my community's Jewish practice growing up. What makes matters worse is that traditionally you're not supposed to recite the Omer blessing if you miss a day. So once you miss a day, you can keep counting, but theoretically you are no longer performing the mitzvah of counting the Omer. This is a perfect encapsulation of those fears I felt during the year in Israel, and the fears I still feel as I continue to develop my own personal practice of Judaism. If I miss a day when counting the Omer, I've been told that I've lost my opportunity and I failed to live up to my own expectations. A practice that should be fulfilling and meaningful instead turns into a source of guilt and shame. All of this points to a larger tension among us liberal Jews. And by liberal Jews, I mean generally Reform, Conservative, Reconstructing, and Renewal Jews, for whom the obligations of halakha, of Jewish law, and strict practice are not binding and all-encompassing as it is for our more traditionally observant siblings. We maintain a commitment to autonomy, the liberty, hence the term liberal, to shape our own personal practice of Judaism according to our own knowledge, means, and values. I should say liberal does not connotate any political leaning, but rather liberal in the meaning that I just laid out. On the one hand, this means that generations of Reform Jews have set aside or even at times forbidden traditional Jewish customs that they've found antiquated, problematic, or lacking deep meaning. And this is called informed choice. Informed choice has indeed liberated us to fashion our Jewish lives intentionally and critically, and to reshape or completely overhaul aspects of Jewish life and prayer so that they better suit to our modern lives and sensibilities. It has also encouraged us to emphasize intention, or kavanah in Hebrew, over the rote performance of customs, known as keva. But on the other hand, informed choice places an enormous burden of expectation for those of us seeking to explore Jewish practice in our own lives. Engaging in Jewish ritual, prayer, custom, it tells us, requires a thorough knowledge of the meaning and even the history behind these practices. It seems to me that this expectation sets up a high barrier for entry. Despite the hopes and dreams of our early Reform predecessors, we are not all scholars and critics. We are human beings seeking to live meaningful lives. We need not have a fully thought out, rational explanation for why we do everything we do. We can simply try new things and begin to integrate them into our own lives because we connect with them. And for whatever reason we might give after the fact, they nourish our souls. In fact, the meaning behind a ritual or custom might only become clear after days, months, years of performing them. They may not have been initially informed by knowledge practicing these rituals, but over time, they may open new avenues of understanding and knowledge through experience. And yet the same is true of an overemphasis of kavanah, or intention, in Jewish life. Yes, it is true, we hope to have a pure and heartfelt intention in every blessing, in every prayer that we recite. The rabbis of the Mishnah teach us that prayer should not be rote or mindless, and tell us that the sages of old would sometimes wait an hour before beginning to pray so as to still their mind and fully direct their hearts towards the divine. It must have been nice to have that kind of time. For previous generations, traditional Jewish practice had become too routine, specifically in the mind of those early Reformed Jews, and it placed an immense weight on the empty observance of custom rather than an intentional, knowledgeable, heartfelt engagement with Jewish life. But what happens when we don't feel the kavanah? When our lives are such that it feels like a burden to pray or to engage with Jewish life, to show up at events or services, whatever it may be. I think for many of us, if we always waited to be in the perfect, pure state of mind to engage with our Judaism, we might never do anything. Stuck in a paralysis because we never quite feel that our hearts or minds are in the right place. The way I see it, this also places too high of a barrier for entry. And like the doubts that come with trying something new, they have the potential to set us up for failure before we've even taken a step on the journey. Keva, routine, and kavanah, intention, serve as the two poles of Jewish spirituality. We need both in our lives. Without kavanah, our connection with Jewish life becomes empty and repetitive, lacking depth and profound meaning. And without keva, we might find ourselves paralyzed or too intimidated to try new things. Of course, different ways of doing and being Jewish might tend towards one or the other. As Reformed Jews, we continue to place an enormous value on kavanah. But we also need the keva. We need the permission to try something new and see how we feel about it. To pray even when our hearts do not feel open. To show up even when we don't feel our best. Or maybe don't know as much as we would like. And above all, we must be kind with ourselves, finding compassion and forgiveness where we might feel shame and guilt. Accepting that we are imperfect and limited. And accepting this fact will help build the courage within us to take those first steps, to try something new, and to continue growing as Jews and as people. I'll conclude with another lesson from my year in Israel. Our professor of rabbinic literature, Rabbi Dr. David Levine, once likened prayer to baseball, an analogy I know that many in our community will appreciate. The best hitters in baseball, he explained, get on base about 30% of the time. Now, in most situations, that is not a great average, but the challenge of hitting a 95-mile-per-hour fastball or a wicked curve from a professional pitcher makes 30% an outstanding percentage. The same is true of prayer, or I would even add any engagement with ritual, with aspects of Jewish life. Depending on who we are, we might feel something, a stirring in our soul, a wave of inspiration about 30% of the time. Now, that may not be a lot, but we'll never get a base hit. We'll never hit a home run. We'll never get a chance to feel that if we never step up to the plate. May we all continue to step up to the proverbial plate in our Jewish lives. May we take those first few steps and try something new, even if we're not sure where the path may lead. May we live our Jewish lives with intention, with kavanah, but not forget the hidden treasures that might lay beneath the keva, the rote. If you want to try to count the Omer next year, go for it. If you want to experiment with your Shabbat practice, kol hakavod, well done. And if these things don't work out or doesn't feel good on the first try, that's totally cool too. What matters is that we constantly strive towards the holiness we are meant to bring in the world, that we are patient and compassionate with ourselves and with each other. and that we find the way of doing Jewish that brings us nourishment, meaning, and wholeness. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. Ken Yehi Ratzon Nenu, may it be all of our wills. And let us say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom. It's now my pleasure to invite up a member of our Board of Trustees, Dr. Neil Romanoff, to share some announcements on behalf of our community.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm Neil Romanoff, member of the Board of Trustees, and on behalf of the Board and Congregation, thank you, Kol Ami, we want to wish you a Shabbat Shalom. Thank you to our annual Shabbat sponsors, Aaron Aronow and Mike Garza, Daniel Blatt, Evan Cohn, Carrie Davidson and Andrew Ogilvy, Phil and Addie Lullyveld, Lauren Ostro and Brian Newkirk, Josh Weinman, and Joseph Zipkin in memory of Rick Lead. Tomorrow morning, Saturday, May 14th, please join Rabbi Levy as we gather as a temple to protest anticipated changes to Roe v. Wade by the Supreme Court. At 10 a.m. tomorrow morning at LA City Hall, we will join with the Women's March Foundation to stand together for reproductive justice. The Kol Ami group will plan to meet just outside the Civic Center Grand Park Station at the corner of West First and North Hill Streets. Congregation Kol Ami will join organizations from across Los Angeles to speak out against the Supreme Court's impending challenges to women's reproductive rights. This coming Thursday, join Rabbi Levy online for the monthly Lunch and Learn program. That's May 19th at noon, online only. On May 22nd, online only, we will continue our celebration of Israel with a special program direct from Israel with Yochi Rappaport, the Executive Director of Women of the Wall. This group has been fighting for equality in public prayer and Torah readings at the Kotel, the Western Wall, for more than 20 years. As always, we hope you'll keep up to date on what's happening at Congregation Kol Ami by visiting our website often at kol-ami.org. That's kol-ami.org. You can register for all of our online and in-person programs, and while you're visiting our website, please consider a donation to the synagogue in support of the vital work we do all year long. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much, Neil. We'll now move into the concluding portion of our service, beginning with Aleinu L'Shabeach, which can be found on page 586. I invite us all to please rise as we are able. Aleinu לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Please be seated. Our thoughts now turn to those whom we've loved and lost, those who have passed from this world in recent weeks or days or months, and those we are remembering from years past. On this Shabbat, Congregation Kol Ami is remembering Ava Rogalski, mother-in-law of Joseph Battelle, David Siegel, father of Alan Siegel, Stephen Kreisel, member of Congregation Kol Ami, Jonathan Keynes, friend of Michael Becker and Henry Sommerfeld, Lawrence Cohen, friend of Congregation Kol Ami, and Joanne Knudsen, sister of Avi de Turenne, all of whom are memorialized by our yahrzeit plaques here in the sanctuary. We are also remembering Chantal Legg Bird, friend of Lynn Harrell, Daniel J. Kaplan, grandfather of Leonard Slutsky, Rose Elkins, grandmother of Kim Bergman, Marilyn Barnett, aunt of Lisa Freed, Jack Weiss, cousin of Iris Schlesinger, Florence Amster, aunt of Iris Schlesinger, Dorothy Beck, mother of Michael Beck, Amalia Levi, grandmother of Larry Levi, Amelia Pasillas, mother of Sally Beck, Nathan Davis, grandfather of Stuart Leviton, Becky Davidson, grandmother of Carrie Davidson, Dan Osborne, friend of Peter Mackler, and Kay Koch, the Mishpacha, the family of Neil Zaslavsky. If there's anyone else that you're remembering at this time, I invite you to share their names with our community here in the sanctuary or to write their names in the chat. Zichronam livracha, may their memories forever be a blessing for all of us. We now turn to page 598 and invite you to please rise as you are able for the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach yiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevarach le'alam u'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shmei dekudesha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mrumav, huya oseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. May the one who fashions harmony on high bring peace to us, to all of Israel, and to all of humanity, to which we say, amen. You may be seated. Our concluding song for tonight can also be found on your insert from inside the little wonderfully designed and colorful bulletin. Thanks to our wonderful communications manager, Yanir Deco. We're going to be singing Shiviti, which comes from Psalm 16. And this particular version comes from an Israeli prayer community called Navatahila, which is based in Jerusalem. And just as a quick note, the words are pretty simple, but you'll notice it says, Shiviti havaya lenegdi tamid. That word, havaya, is actually in place of what we would usually say as Adonai, the word that you use instead of pronouncing the unpronounceable four-letter name of God. And havaya is a very interesting way of interpreting it. It uses basically the same root as the four-letter name for God. It just flips the words around a little bit, and it simply means being. One of the explanations for the four-letter name of God is that it is a combination of what was, what is, and what will be. And Havaya is sort of all of being in and of itself, and it is also a feminine construction of the name of God, encouraging us to embrace the feminine aspects of the divine. And then Ahava, pretty simple, means love. So we are surrounded by being, we're surrounded by love. Shiviti Shiviti havaya lenegdi tamid. I keep you before me, literally in front of me at all times, O God. May we go into this Shabbat seeing the divine everywhere we look, in people, in places, in the things that we love, in nature, in our pets. May we see the divine, may we see the good that we know is in everyone. Shabbat Shalom.
So quiet.